Hello, my name is Steve Lamb. I'm a recovering office holder. Every day we're inundated with stories of the negative, the world's falling apart, the sky is falling. I'm here today with the Center for Progressive Urban Politics, and we're not focusing on the problem, on how to get the government to solve the problem. We're focusing on citizens who are taking a hold of their own lives, solving problems for themselves and their communities. Today we're here with Jules Dervaes from the Urban Homestead in Pasadena, and we're talking to him about how he's taken a hold of his own life and been an inspiration to others. Good morning, Jules.
Good morning, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good. Now, as I understand it, you have an extensive background in horticulture. You lived in New Zealand for a while, then you grew in Florida. Then you came to Pasadena. In Pasadena, you were involved in theology and also aquatic gardens. And then at some point, you decided you were going to grow your own food here on your suburban lot. How did that evolve? How did you make that decision?
Okay, well, my past was going back to my father's.
Okay.
Living with my father. It was a country, rural life.
Where was that?
In Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And it was by the bay.
Okay.
And there was a little bit of country in the wilds of Florida back before it got developed.
Okay.
So that's my home. It's inside of me, the home that I want to return to. And this was supposed to be like a 4-year stop here and then on to something else.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I moved here.
And how long have you been here?
Yeah, that'll be like 30 years.
It's a little bit longer than you planned.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my 4 children were growing up.
Okay.
And I had a different life than they had. They were in Pasadena. Pasadena,
Right.
part of LA.
Right.
You know, right out 15 minutes out of Los Angeles is pretty monstrous if you're a country person.
Right.
You know, it's hard to get used to. So we were lucky that we found kind of a rural area because the freeway had taken up the neighborhood.
So it was before the freeway was actually built?
No, the freeway had taken out our neighborhood. So when I came
okay.
here in '84, that land was sort of open, vacant.
Right.
You know, my kids played around in there.
Right.
And then of course we had the Rose Bowl and the ARROYO SECO,
Right.
which
Okay.
we played in. And then I took them up to the local mountains.
Okay.
And so I yearned for the country life, and I didn't want my children to grow up just in the city. So I tried to import parts of the country a little bit at a time. So I set about getting a garden first.
Okay.
First of all, grow my own food, and we progressed step by step to almost it's have to be a micro farm lifestyle, and now when we sit here, we can almost believe that we're in the country.
Well, you almost can.
Yeah.
As you know, I come to a lot of your events on the weekends, and it's very unusual when you come here because you have musicians playing,
Yeah.
but the physicality of your environment
Yeah,
is such that the noise actually doesn't escape out.
That's right.
So you have a very quiet environment
Yeah.
here.
I mean, you could feel even temperature-wise.
Right.
You know, people have spotted that the when they come to this place, the temperature drops because of all the greenery,
Right.
and then the sounds of the country with the people remark about the bird life, the wildlife we have here, and then and even the smells. It doesn't smell. There's a lot of different things going on here happening on the homestead, and through the senses.
Right.
If you close your eyes and if you forget the freeway, if you drown that out, you can believe you're in the country.
So you wanted to return to the country.
That's right.
So that means that you didn't use, for example, DDT and poisonous chemicals on your plants. You grow everything organically.
Yeah. That's what we. At the beginning, we did have to buy soil and amendments.
Right.
And they weren't. That was so long ago. They didn't even have OMRI listed.
I don't even know what OMRI is.
Organic Materials Review Institute.
Okay.
Officially organic.
Okay.
We bought what was available in the stores. Now it's changed over 30 years. So, but we don't touch any artificial chemicals.
So no.
Nothing. We don't want to mess with them. They end up messing with you.
Well, yeah, they get even.
They get even. I know somewhere. So yes, and then my father taught me a long time ago before there was even anything mentioned about organic gardening, because he learned it from his father, which they learned from Belgian farming.
Right.
Was that you compost everything, you don't waste anything.
Okay.
So his land was piles of refuse,
Right.
waste from the plants he had, from the trees he had, and he just kept everything on his property, and it turned to a rich, productive land in
Black,
terms.
loamy,
That's right.
yeah.
He didn't have to put out any fertilizer on it, but he did ornamentals.
Okay.
He wasn't interested in raising his own food. He had enough. He had money. He had a great job as a
Right.
Chevron executive.
Okay.
For Central Florida, and so he didn't need that. He just used it for his therapy.
Right.
On the weekends. Ornamentals. I
So-
wanted edibles.
You wanted
Because I had a
edibles.
family going up.
You
growing
had
up.
kids.
I had children. Yes.
So when you moved here 30 something years ago, this was kind of in those days an undesirable neighborhood.
Oh yes. It was going down.
Yeah.
It had seen its better days, and
Yeah.
the original people that let's say had this house, they moved on to a better house, and most of this Cypress Avenue, both sides here of Orange Grove, were rental properties.
Right.
And rental properties, as you know,
Generally not so good.
generally are on the decline.
But do you think that helped you? Do you think that allowed you to compost? Whereas, say, if you had been in Hastings Ranch, the zoning police would have been at your door if you were
Yeah.
trying to grow food.
Yeah, well, we were so far ahead of the game that we needed that head start.
Right.
Now that it's the city took up composting, and they wanted to give you composters, but
Right.
and they want to give you fruit trees, and they want to do things
Right.
to turn it like what we have.
Right.
But in the beginning, it was foreign.
Right.
It was a threat
Yes.
to some people, but now it's accepted. But we had to go through the dry time, I call it.
Is a dry time. And so, but you think because of where you were that they kind of left you alone. You didn't have a lot of interference.
Right.
Did you do that on purpose, or was it a happy accident?
Oh, it was. I think. Well, I looked for a place that reminded me of somewhat of the land that I had in Florida.
Okay.
And even though I couldn't own this, I had a small patch here. I had 10 acres in Florida, so this
Right.
was going down to a fifth of an acre.
Right.
What I ended up doing is surrounding myself with sort of like a feeling that there's empty land everywhere else. So we can use that, like just the feeling of having that, and then of course being Pasadena with the ARROYO SECO right in the middle.
Right.
We ended up going down there, and there was country just half a mile from the place, walking distance. So
And-
we used their Pasadena's country element
Right. As your own.
as my own, as my park.
You know, it's
Private
amazing.
park.
You don't really realize this. I discovered this in an old Craftsman magazine, but the ARROYO SECO actually became a public space and a park. It was originally designed by the Craftsman movement, the progressive movement. It was going to be an urban park.
Yeah.
That actually was originally going to have camping and fishing and,
Yeah.
and those sort of amenities in it until it became, in the 40s, a flood control
Yeah.
base.
Well, there's down there. There's Busch Gardens.
Right, there was. Yeah.
A section of beginning of Busch Gardens down
Right.
there, and you say, wow, this is beautiful. We almost felt like at home, as home as you can be, in Pasadena. It's a pretty moderate sized city, but where we settled was on purpose.
Okay.
And I was very blessed to get this place.
And it was basically closeness to open, usable land that
Yes.
was not your own.
Yeah.
Now, did you, your father grew ornamentals. He taught you how to do that. Did you get a hold of any books or anything that you studied on how to grow food, how to grow chickens, how to grow bees? I mean, you do all that stuff. You grow chickens
that's right.
and food and bees. And I think you got a goat or two
Yeah.
and some
Yeah.
ducks
Yes,
and
yeah.
quails.
That's right.
How did what was your learning curve on that?
Well, my learning curve started when I immigrated to New Zealand,
Okay.
and I was there for 2 years, and I left with I had a briefcase, and I had 13 issues of Mother Earth News.
Okay, Mother Earth News.
And I traveled to New Zealand, and there was my education. I read
Wow.
the Mother Earth News, and then because New Zealand was so
Backwards.
good backwards,
Right.
it was backwards, that all the people around me did this and more. They had their own
Okay.
original lifestyle that they've kept for on the island for long
So they kind of
centuries,
taught you how.
Yeah, so I observed them, But one of the funniest things was I was still trying to do it myself. So they would laugh at me as the old timers would drive by my place, a real small place, and I was sitting in the garden. And I was reading the magazines and the books, and they were laughing because they got a kick out of the.
Now stick seed in dirt.
Yeah, I know. And actually, my original thing was with a ruler, and it said 6 inches apart. It's got to be 6 inches apart exactly. 6 inches. And they were having a scream at my behalf because they grew up. Their grandfather, great grandfathers did it. They just understood it from doing it.
Right.
And I was gradually introduced there for 2 years. I learned beekeeping there. I had chickens, I had ducks, I had goats there, and bees. And then I left when my first daughter was born. To come back to Florida, and I left that all behind, most of it. And I wanted my children to get that same learning that I had, skills and learning. So I introduced, after gardening, we introduced the chickens, then the ducks, then the goats, then the bees. And as we went along, as they got older and more able to handle all because you don't do it, if you threw it all together all at once,
overwhelming.
It'd be overwhelming. Yeah, you would sink.
Right.
From that, because you can't do it. They're live creatures, and you can make mistakes even with plants and trees, and you don't want to see things ruined. So I took it slow, but every year we added another element. The interesting thing is when we had to go into technological fields, I had to do solar ovens. Solar panels first.
Right.
We did solar ovens. We did biodiesel fuel.
So that
we
fuel.
We went into a kind of a technical area where I was a novice. See, I was introducing my children to stuff that I had learned, but together we went into some places that we didn't feel like we didn't belong.
So you actually make your own fuel for your diesel vehicles.
Right, out of waste vegetable oil.
Amazing.
From the restaurants that we grew so much food, we went to the restaurants. The restaurants fried the food, had the oil, and we had a nice little relationship there. Yeah.
So you actually grew so much food that eventually not only were you eating it yourselves, but out of this fifth of an acre, you were selling it to other people?
Yeah, which was a shock.
Yeah?
It was a real shock.
So
to us too. I mean, not to the world, but to us too. We were saying, how could this possibly be? But we did it.
So how much food can you grow off a fifth of an acre?
Well, at the early, now it's changed, but at the early years when we started doing this on a serious basis, let's say 2000, 2001, the first time we actually recorded it was 2,000 pounds for the first year.
A ton.
Of produce that we got off the land, but we would harvest it and then weigh it and record it, so we got a ton. Next year we got 3,000 pounds, and so I said, hey, maybe I ought to challenge myself to a race, to a contest between Dervaes 2001 and 2002 or something. So I forget the exact dates, but one year I sat down my children at the table and I said, I'm gonna do something out of just gutsy, a risk. And I said, we're going to grow 6,000 pounds. That's the goal we set. So that we made it. We got 3 tons of food out of this place back in the early days.
Out of a fifth of an acre.
Yes. In
the city, you got 6,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
Yeah. Well, we were shocked too, but that's what you do. The power of challenging yourself, there was nobody who did this and who am I supposed to compare to? But I said, well, I know if I did this, and I'm supposed to be learning as I go, and I knew we were making tons of mistakes. I said, if I just tighten up all the mistakes, and challenge ourselves, push to succeed on a level that we never thought we could, then even if we fell short, it'd be better. That's like going for the Super Bowl. You make the playoffs, like that.
So now you're selling to restaurants, country clubs, and also you have a on your front porch. You actually have a farm stand, and that really just kind of tickles me to no end. You probably don't realize this because you weren't in California at the time, but when I was young, till say about 1970. You would drive down the major arterial roads in California, and there would be a farm stand.
I bet there was.
And there would be fresh fruit and vegetables from local farms at the farm stand. And the zoning Nazis shut that down at some point because they didn't have enough parking and they didn't have refrigeration and they had all these regulations that they couldn't meet anymore, so they shut them down. But somehow the city let you have a farm stand. And it's, for me, it's like, I walk up to that farm stand, and of course your daughter's there, and she's a very wonderful person, so it's even better than it was when I was a kid. But you walk up to that farm stand, and there's all this fresh local produce,
Yeah.
like when I was young.
Yeah.
And this stuff is like fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I believe in retro living.
Retro.
And so I'm going back that way. I don't care where the world's going, but those were those really were. I mean, you hear that phrase and people
Right.
poo-poo it, but those days where you had fresh fruits
Fresh
and
fruit.
vegetables available
Right.
for anybody, and it didn't go by way of the distribution centers and the local supermarkets, and then finally to your place. This is the way I picture living, was
Yeah.
this way. So we did it for ourselves first and foremost, but now we're glad that other people can share in it. Yeah.
So, but the city's never given you a problem with your
Well,
farm stand.
we have a home occupation license,
Okay.
and then
So that's a special permit that you get from the city, a home occupation
yeah,
license?
to do business at home.
Okay.
But like anybody could do business at home
Right.
now with just an occupation license. Make sure you just pay your fee to the city.
Well, they always got a fee, yeah.
But then there was a law passed by LA County that said something like Freedom Food and Flour Act a couple of
Okay.
years back, that allowed people to sell what they grew.
And that was through Supervisor Antonovich. He introduced that, and the Board of Supervisors passed it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just not this year, but last year was California passed a cottage food bill act where you can make jam, cook breads, muffins, cakes, pies,
Wow.
and sell it.
Okay.
And not have a certified kitchen that would cost so much. You can register with the I guess now we're registering with city, and you can take a food handler's course.
Okay.
But you can set up your own business out of your kitchen instead of having to rent a huge certified kitchen,
Right.
which then took your profits away.
Right.
But now it went to the small business, the real small, basically down to the family business, which was retro.
Right. Well, I've had Anais's strawberry jams. You guys grew strawberries, and Anais made a whole bunch of various kinds of jams. I mean, she made some with lime and strawberry, and some with cherry and strawberry, and some that are just strawberry, and some that are strawberry and citrus.
Don't forget peach jalapeno.
Peach jalapeno. And I got to tell you, those are the most fantastic jams I've had since my grandmother died, who used to make her own jam.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, you can't beat that, really. I mean, think about it. We've strayed far from the original course, I think.
Yeah, right from there. So, you're doing all this stuff, and then on top of like growing your own food, selling your own food, manufacturing jams and breads and stuff, you also started doing cultural events. You've got on weekends you've got both events called Song and Dinner, where you have specific performers come and you feed everyone dinner, and then you also have hootenannies on other times where it's just kind of like a big group sing and you feed folks. How did you start doing that? Why did you start doing that?
Yeah, I keep asking myself.
So, well, I know it must be a lot of work because we're in the space where that happens now, and it's set up.
I ask myself that.
Yeah.
I would say it was by chance sometimes. Although I knew something was missing in my life. Just myself, my family growing food. It was a sort of like there was an isolation factor there.
Mm-hmm.
This was nice, but we were not sort of like cut off by ourselves.
So you were isolated.
So yeah, I mean, right, in a way. I mean, we were doing this, but there was no way to kind of get people together.
Mm-hmm.
And except that, our first years were to take our produce and go directly to the restaurants. And Pasadena has more
2,500 restaurants. Yeah.
That's right. So, and California restaurants have to be kind of innovative, and
Right.
so we were doing the innovative thing by giving them fresh produce and introducing them to new stuff. They had to have heirloom
Okay.
varieties, and so we had gone the restaurant route but the economy kind of tanked back a couple years ago.
Yeah, I
we were
recall.
still, you recall that? We were still in a quote recession.
Yeah.
So it was like we had to rethink our approach, and so the part of the farm stand was that we would sell locally to people off the street, our customers now. So we actually talked to people, whereas before we just handed it to the chef.
Right.
They
Okay.
served it and they talked to the people, but we never heard
Right.
directly. So now our business, dealing face to face, got us to know more people. And then one of the persons that came to the farm stand was a musician, Dwayne.
Dwayne Thorin, yeah.
Yes. And he's a bachelor, and he used to say, I wanted to buy duck eggs or something for his food, and fresh vegetables. But one day he asked my daughter to cook him up the omelet instead of him buying the duck eggs
Right.
and the vegetables and everything and going up to his plate and having to fix it. He asked for being fixed here. And he liked it, and he told a lot of people. And then he's a musician.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. That's right. And he's a musician. So one day he sits in the garden, and he actually composed a song in the garden here, the Pasadena song.
Right. Oh, yeah.
He composed in the garden.
Okay.
So
That's our Fight Walmart song.
Yeah. And cue the chicken.
No, that's our Fight Walmart
that's
song.
Right.
He composed that
it
here.
here in the garden.
All right.
And he would be sitting there for hours. In that you can imagine how this would be inspirational.
Yes.
Because it's the anti-Walmart lifestyle.
Yeah, it's totally local.
Yeah, that's
Hopefully it's high wage for you guys, or you can at least make a living.
Yeah, and then he asked for then he brought his guitar, and then he told other people, and then one guitar followed another guitar, then a banjo showed up, and then a bass showed up one day, and all of a sudden we had the beginnings of a hootenanny. Yeah.
And then eventually it moved back
I had
here.
to move back here for space.
Right. Okay.
And then we said, what else can we do with the space? Then it became classes and dinners, farm-to-table dinners. It became concerts. Now we're doing concerts, and then a regular hootenanny.
Right.
And then also all of a sudden we have like a community going, which we had missed for so long.
Okay. And so you teach classes?
I don't. My kids.
Your
My
kids
kids.
do?
Yeah.
So Anais teaches classes, I would suppose, on cooking and canning and that sort of thing. And Jordana, your younger daughter, I understand, teaches people how to take care of chickens and ducks and quail.
Yeah.
And I understand Jordana is actually, most people think that like the Urban Homestead, you guys are a bunch of Luddites, you're a bunch of, sort of
watch out.
Amish sorts of people or something,
Yeah,
But actually Jordana is very, very
Yeah.
computer savvy, isn't she?
Oh, yeah, too much.
Too much?
Wow. This is a strange, because I was, when I was in Florida, I had taught a little bit at St. Leo College.
Okay.
And this was the early days of Radio Shack and Commodore computers.
Right. Sure. Oh, wow. Takes me back.
They asked me to teach a basic computer language back then, basics language. And so I had a computer class, and I've had a computer for a long time. So I was into doing that basic language.
Right.
I think other one was before Fortran, I think. But we were doing basics, and I taught the staff class at St. Leo's. So I was carrying around a computer. But when I showed Jordy, my youngest daughter, what the computers can do, and I had her do some work for me early on, she took off, and she's self-taught webmaster, web designer.
Okay.
Tech, camera editing.
And so she writes her own programs. I mean, she doesn't necessarily follow someone's template. She can do all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
she can do it now. Well, at the beginning, she would go behind the websites that were current, and she would learn what this does. And now then she selects what they do, and then she can design from there.
Okay.
The features that she wants.
Amazing.
And she puts together something for someone else. She's gotten, and people have said our website was, we didn't go for any, we're not going that direction, but they said it was quality, sort of award-winning in their eyes, that we have a great website.
It's an easy-to-use website. Yeah.
Well, we had to pay at the beginning to get up to speed with the new stuff, but then Jordan, she catches on, and then she goes from somebody leads us and then we catch up to them, and then
Right.
then we just hop along. Scott hop.
So your whole thing is really about, I mean, aside from, it's a very strange mix
Yeah, it
because
is.
you've basically built your own independence while at the same time building a community.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't explicitly your intention, but it kind of evolved naturally
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Well, the people call it an organic evolution of even they say this is organic music here, the way
Right.
the hootenanny comes, how it comes together. It feels very much like a family, a backyard happening in the old days where, although it's I would call neighbors, but they're far away because neighbors aren't your
Right.
neighbors aren't your physical neighbors. They're
Right.
neighbors on the internet. You
Right.
can reach them, and people come together, and it feels like you've known them a long time.
Well, you have people I know who are like as close as 3 or 4 blocks away.
Yeah.
And then you have people who drive in, and I'll be sitting talking to them at dinner, and I've never met them before, or maybe I've seen them, across the area, and they're like from San Diego, they're from
Yeah.
Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
and they're coming to have that experience of kind of a relaxed, non-commercial, communal, musical, cultural environment.
Yeah.
It's,
What
it's-
can we can ask for more than that?
Yeah, you really couldn't. Now, you were talking about organic, and I practice this weird thing called organic architecture that is a philosophy of Frank Lloyd Wright's. And I noticed, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, but I noticed that when I walk up to your house, okay, you do not have a walkway directly to the front door. You lead people around at 90 degrees, and then at 90 degrees again, and then at 90 degrees again. And this is a strategy Wright employed,
Oh, no kidding.
interestingly enough, very, very often to give a sense of unfolding and mystery and protection, psychological protection. Did you do that on purpose, or did that also just kind of like, you just kind of evolved it and it was just there?
Well, part of it was the house that was already built.
Right.
That they had that old feature. The feature came with it, like the sidewalks.
Right.
I didn't pour any sidewalks. Actually, I removed one of the sidewalks that came directly to the house.
So you did intentionally remove
That one that went straight.
Straight.
Yeah, it was a
straight
big
to the front
6
door.
foot,
Yeah.
monster thing, and I said, "Oh, I'm too open. I'm too open."
Okay.
And it's not green. It's not green. So yeah, I ended up playing with trees and bushes to make interesting. All photographers that come here will shoot angles,
Right.
360, and everyone is a different look,
Right.
and they get lost in the landscape.
Right.
And that's my dad.
That's your dad?
That's my dad.
Okay, that's your dad.
That's my dad. I took advantage of it's a small space, but the way it happens, that people think it's
Huge.
but how much you travel to get to someplace, you think it's bigger than it is. It's very. If you stripped all that stuff out, it would be like a little postage stamp. The thing is, I said, well, how'd you get all that in there? Well, it's in little
Right.
twists and turns. Like that.
I've noticed that you have your entire yard planted in small your front at least, planted in small sets of plants at largely varying heights. And that's a landscape trick that we employ in architecture all the time that gives you the illusion of close and far away
That's right,
space.
depth and- yes,
mountains,
that's right,
And
depth,
you did
yeah.
that purposely? Yes.
Well, no, but it's my dad.
No, it's just your dad. It's
my
just
dad.
in your background, and it just came
And
out.
what I noticed that this is Belgian. It's a Belgian trait,
Okay.
basically from way back dealing in small areas and with they're really good at lace.
Yes.
Lace. They have this remarkable eye for symmetry
Mm-hmm.
and my dad passed along through his dad, and one of the comments was that when I was gardening in Florida, that one person remembered my grandfather, and he said his place was, straight and so organized, and I take a little bit of that, but I do it in a way that is interesting, not.
Right. So
I
it
can-
doesn't
I can-
look regimented.
Yeah, right. But it
But
is.
maybe-
There is some discipline in there.
Okay.
But I my dad got in his mind. We had so much space to do a lot of interior on his landscape. I'm sorry, external walkways and twists and turns because he bought a land with a lot of oak trees,
Oh.
and he wanted to save the oak trees.
Okay.
Now, the oak trees they planted themselves a long time ago. There was,
Oh,
it was
yes.
uncleared land, and oak trees came up. So he made an oak tree, and he didn't want to take it down, so he went this way, and then another oak tree, and then he went this way, and his land was like this because the oak trees made him curve.
Okay, so he
And-
adapted to nature.
Yes, he adapted that, and this was straight land, but I believe it happened because as young kids, my brother and myself, we mowed that land, and all I can remember is all the circles that I mowed. There was never a straight line. It was like, when is this going to end? I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. And it was like, madness, because you're on
Right.
circles, you come back over this,
Right.
you don't have
There's no
always
straight line. You don't know exactly where you
there's
were.
always- and you
There's
mow
weird
the land,
triangles.
you mow the same land over again.
Right.
And we were in his yard for hours, doing that on thing. And now I just came and I just do a circle, a twisty, turny thing, but
just
I don't
can't
have to
help
mow.
it.
I know, but I don't have to at least mow.
Well, thank God of
I
that.
took out the
right?
grass.
You took out the grass. That was the other thing. He had you
I know.
mowing so long.
That's right.
you
I
took
know.
out the
No grass. I know. Before it was popular to do no grass front yards, I did that, and it was a challenge to get in a neighborhood that in California that needed. Every California has that green space in the front of the yard,
Yeah.
and it says, "This is this is your model. This is your ideal.
Right.
Green lawn." And I was in lawn maintenance for 9 years in Florida. And I didn't want to
Didn't
be
love
lawn.
it,
I didn't
huh?
want to be lawn maintenance here. In fact, it didn't look that good even after I mowed it, because Florida gets rain,
Right.
lots of rain. So I just started experimenting, and it came out beyond my what I could believe I could do. It turned out to be some special place.
So you, basically in your heart, when you did this, you did this out of a yearning to go back home
yeah.
to your childhood, to provide your children with the kind of childhood that you had, with experiences of nature, fresh food. And you did that kind of as an homage to the past, but
Yeah.
do you see that really as the way that we're going to have to go as a society in the future? That the GMO food and the highly processed, manufactured, insecticide-laden food is really not sustainable for us as people, that the gigantic carbon footprint of taking a potato from Idaho and driving it by diesel bus 1,400 miles to California is not really a sane way to live. Do you think we're going to move, everyone's going to move towards like small suburban farms like yours in the future?
Well, I don't know if it's possible in some places because it's already been built,
Right.
and we're not. I don't think we'll ever be like Denmark or some of the Belgium cities, the old cities that were built around walking and bicycling,
Right.
because this architecture that the city was sections and center was all done for the way they lived a long time ago.
Right.
And they still have that today here in Boston and some places
Right.
in New York, where you can walk. You don't need a car.
Right.
By the time it transported itself to Southern California, they have two wide open spaces, and it becomes a challenge to get things close like they were before. Now, to the price of land too, including.
Well, yeah, the
Yeah.
price of land. Well, the price of land in Southern California. This is going to be an unpopular statement, but it's just not sustainable, and it has to go down a lot for it to be affordable to wage earners.
Yeah.
But do you think that people actually growing food on their own land is going to become much more of, not kind of like a trend, like, oh, this is my lifestyle for 5 years, but it's really going to become how people live in the future in California?
Well, I would say it's changed since we started, and I didn't know the extent that would take off. But it was good for me. I mean, it was good for me and my family. That's
Right.
all. I decide what I want my family to have, and I go about doing it, and then we shared it with other people, and if they wanted it. So it has taken off. However, it's too early to tell because I know it's a hard life.
It's a hard life.
Yes, it is hard.
So it's not like you
It's
see
not,
on the
no, and it's not a clean light.
It's
It's
dirty
dirty,
fingernails.
dirty fingers.
So
Get
it's-
close up on this. But
It's not like you've seen a lot of the documentaries where you go out to the middle of nowhere and you plant stuff and it all comes up and everyone's happy in 30 minutes. It's a lot of hard work to grow your own food.
Well, yeah, and the decisions that have to be made are really hard because you're the first person.
Right.
If my children, everything I've done before, it's always I see it's easier for my children to do, and it's going to be easier for their children to do.
Right.
But the first person trailblazing
Right.
is basically lost in the finding its way. It's trial and error.
What kind of hard decisions did you have to make?
Well, I've had to take out a lot of plants that
Right.
I had to decide first of all what to put in, and then that was hard because there was so much and so little space, and they do tend to crowd each other out, and some grew better than others. So then I had to decide which to take out.
Right.
First put in, then take out, and then I had to decide what again. And we've really been refining it.
Right.
Fine-tuning it, and until it gets to a level that my kids can adopt and say, I see how this works. You see a model, then you follow the model. But without a model on some of this thing, we're groping in the dark. You see, and no book, and no class, and no seminar will ever tell you how to do it on your land.
Because every piece of land is different.
It's unique. I can move this over there and it wouldn't work. I can move this over across the street and it wouldn't work.
Right.
Like it works here. I'd
Right.
have to change my whole concept over there. I'd have to maybe reverse some things and then not everything. I would have to go through the process again. Put in something, take out something else, put in something else.
I was talking to Anais several months ago. That's your daughter.
Yeah.
And I said, so you guys do square foot gardening? And she goes, no, it's really more like square inch gardening. We really manage this land really inch by inch.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're saying. You're saying the microclimates are such that
Yeah.
you can't just say, okay, here's a plot and we just move it exactly over because you're actually focusing the entire development of your land on the very land itself.
Yeah. And the structures.
And the structures.
Yeah, and
effective.
and the neighbor's trees.
And then, okay.
It's like if you go out in the country, you've got this huge place. You can plant, rows and rows of this stuff, and then who's to interfere? What's to interfere?
Right.
But here, there's you do something, and later on you say, oh, that would have grown good here, but there's interference from this, say, this tree, neighbor
From this
tree,
pecan tree or this walnut tree or whatever.
And then now they planted. A new development comes in and plants these trees here, and actually the trees along this side, they were interfering with our solar.
Oh, okay.
See, we have 12 solar panels there, and we were upset when they planted those trees because we knew they were going to steal the sun.
Oh, and that was on your south face.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
and we said, hey, but they weren't allowed to do that.
Right.
But now I think there's some regulations in there that I think they've managed that you cannot take somebody's solar away from them. I think that's in the works. But what we do is we manage to prune their trees so it gets over the sun comes over the top.
Good.
But see, that's who's going to tell you that? Where are you going to go with that?
How are you going to know?
I don't know.
Where's that?
And then
in the
look at
book?
and then all of a sudden we have 3 years of drought. See, and that curtails a whole bunch of growth. I'm thinking I want more trees to put in and more new plants to put in, but I'm not putting in a tree that's not going to get water from the heavens.
So you prefer
So
non-irrigation. You prefer to use natural rainfall.
Right. Well, it's to get down that far.
Mm-hmm.
You have to spend a ton of money to do that, and it's never going to look good except if you had a natural rainfall. Trees growing during that time because it goes deeper for a longer period of time, soaks in.
Okay.
And so we held back on growth because of the drought, and we took out some stuff because of the drought.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like we're having to adapt to the climate and the weather. They tell us they're the last. They're the dictator. They tell us what we can and cannot do.
So very much like a traditional non-monoculture farmer, you're completely dependent on changes in the weather from year to year.
Yeah, and for what happens on this land after using it so many years. My goal is how I want to know, and I haven't gone over there and studied, but I want to know the Italians and the Swiss and the country and even the Japanese, how they lasted so long on one small piece of land and still maintain productivity.
Oh.
See, because the productivity is supposed to go down as you use the land up. That's why they kept moving
Right.
from Oklahoma to the
Right,
next. To the
right,
next.
right, right.
And now, and even when they're irrigating in the valleys, they salt up the land,
soil, yeah.
salt up the soil, and then they got to move.
Right.
But what happens when you there's no place to move, and then now they're looking at Mars? No.
Well, yeah, as Bob Dylan says, they want to grow food and on the moon and eat it raw. You know?
Yeah.
Make your home garden against the
But then
law.
where are you going to go? Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
See, but the idea is, look at the people that were successful, like Greek islands, Greek islands. They didn't have any place to go, and they've been still doing that. And that's just so. I don't think anybody knows how. I mean, I'm not okay. Anybody, they know, but I don't know that. I would never know how they actually can do that, because you'd have to do it for thousands of years. And here, I'm doing it for 30.
Right.
Here, that's a drop in the bucket.
But so you're really interested in
Longevity.
longevity in
Yeah.
the future, sustainability,
Yes.
continuity,
And I don't know how that works here.
and no one does yet.
No one knows yet.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah.
something your grandchildren will get to explore.
Yeah. But that uncertainty, it scares people. That there's a fear. It's fear in me too. I can feel it. Like, what if I can't get this next year? What if it doesn't grow the same way? And what if you've used up the soil? What if you've planted as much as you can plant, or the trees get old and they're not as productive? What do you do? And when do you remove everything? When do you have too much of this
It is true that, like, out in San Bernardino, excuse me, out in San Bernardino, people have some old Valencia orange groves, and they don't produce as much fruit as they produced their first 40 years. They're 100 years old now, but they produce better fruit.
Yes. Yeah, and they got deeper roots.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
yet the chapters are yet to be written,
Right.
and nobody's written them for this place, and
Right.
and I wouldn't know, and that uncertainty is enough to keep a lot of people.
You were
fearful
talking
of
about the
this.
decisions you have to make to do this. You grow all your own food. This is really a full-time job for you. You don't have, like, a job at an office that you go do and then
Like hours,
hours, yeah.
like punch out
like,
time.
in a suit. I mean, you guys, basically your whole adult family now is involved in the urban farm business. How did you get to the point where you transitioned from standard employment to the point where you were able to live off what you produced on the land?
A combination. I did self-employed work for a long time.
So what did you do where you
I
were
was
self-employed?
Lawn maintenance in Florida.
Okay, lawn maintenance.
And beekeeping.
And
So,
beekeeping.
yeah, I had honey business. And
Okay.
bee business. And so that gave me like an intermediate step.
Okay.
So I wasn't working exactly with nature, although I was working with bees.
Right.
And I was maintaining nature, but it didn't depend on, I didn't get any food from it. I
Right.
just mowed what people had. So they gave me a salary, not a salary, but contract
Right.
on terms. So it was an intermediate step. But this one here was a big step, and it was like a challenge to the existence of Monsanto's genetically modified food.
That must have been terribly frightening. I mean, the day when you decided, okay, I'm going to stop being even self-employed, and I'm going to actually be totally self-reliant on whatever I can get out of this fifth of an acre of land in the suburb. I mean, wasn't that just like, weren't you biting your nails?
Well, my dad, my dad had been through the war, and his dad
Okay.
had been through the Great Depression. My
Okay.
mom was a war bride, and she'd been through occupied Belgium.
Okay.
This was a piece of cake.
Okay.
Compared, there was no threat of life. If I wanted it to be a statement, but I believe that we could pare down our needs, and we would always have something. There would be available. Wouldn't be what we wanted. It wouldn't be as much as we wanted. But I was
So you willfully
very good at sacrifice.
So you very willfully decided you were going to go against the standard American lifestyle of endless stuff
Yeah,
in exchange of consumption in exchange for a life of actually just taking care of your needs. And that's really expanded to the point where now you have a whole community of people who, if they're not doing that, they at least want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, I think we could go, at least if you have a kind of a stubborn streak,
Yes.
you know, which I have in my family. I think we could go down to bare necessities. I don't think anybody's living on the bare bottom of, I mean,
Right.
willfully. There are people that have way less than we have, and
Right.
and we're still living fairly high. But I thought we would get nowhere unless I took that risk of cutting ties. And my example to my children was, if you had a rope of many strands, and you don't toss the rope overboard, you don't cut it like one fell swoop and cut the whole rope, and then you say, whoa, I'm out here alone. So what we did over the years is and not, it was patience. It took patience, but we took one strand and snipped it, and took another strand and snipped it like that, and we're getting down to where we can cut through the entire rope.
Amazing. It's good talking to you.
Nice
Jules.
talking to you. Okay.